Yeah, so my brain and my voice are both quite fuzzy, so try and bear with me. Just holler if I need to talk louder somehow. Yes, I'm not quite that today, thank you. Yeah, I'm Jay McNeil. For the last 5 years I've been co-running a group called TransBareAll with Lee Gale here. And we work to support the health and well-being of the trans communities through direct work with trans people. I've also recently set up Traverse Research, which is an organisation that aims to support trans needs through equalities research. And both of these organisations are involved in the trans mental health study, which I led, which we published in September this year. Just a brief bit of background, we had 889 participants from the UK, and this makes it the largest survey of mental health and wellbeing of trans people in the world. And so it's a brilliant bit of work, and we're very grateful to everyone who took part. Today, obviously the focus with Trans Day of Remembrance is to think about those people who've been taken from us. But, as well as this overt violence, what I want to talk about is how violence can manifest in more subtle and more broad ways within our communities and in relation to trans people. As trans people, we often experience external violence. In the study that we ran, we found that 80% of people had experienced silent harassment, 38% had experienced physical intimidation or sexual harassment, 19% had experienced physical assault, 14% sexual assault, and 6% of people had been raped. And these were crimes that were committed because the person was transgender, not for any other reason. Our collective experiences as community members of this violence have led to our community being governed by this pernicious sense of fear, which infiltrates our lives and denies many of us the opportunities that other people would take for granted. For example, 81% of people who took part in our study said that they had to avoid social situations because they were too scared of being harassed or outed. And this avoidance, it relates to tangible acts of violence, but violence is exerted against us in subtle ways as well, as I've said. So, for example, the media commit violence against us when they deny us our individuality and our many achievements and our strengths, instead choosing to focus on negative stereotypes with sex swap horror headlines that breed hateful and inflammatory comments in the internet sites on which they're published. I actually made the mistake once of reading through all the comments after a Daily Mail article, and I didn't want to leave the house for about 4 days after that. In fact, many of the people who took part in our study reported that they felt that the way that trans people were portrayed in the media had a direct and very negative impact on their mental health and well-being. More shocking, though, is the fact that we experience violence from the very health and social care institutions that we might need to turn to for help and support. When our rights are removed, when we aren't seen as intelligent and capable human beings, we are harmed. Many of the participants suffered humiliating experiences in healthcare generally, but particularly within gender clinics where they'd gone actively to seek help for their gender issues. Some of the issues that came up were clinicians using very insulting language on purpose, knowing it was insulting, ridiculing people for being transgender, and also demanding to inspect their genitals when there was no clinical or medical reason to do so. Approximately 20% of our participants wanted to harm themselves as a direct result of their experiences within a gender clinical healthcare setting. So as well as these external pressures, we experience violence from within our own communities as well. So when someone is excluded from a group for not being trans enough, or for example when someone doesn't fit into someone else's view of what gender should look like, and this is something that we perpetuate ourselves as well as from outside. But most significantly, we experience violence from ourselves. For all the times that we internalise those hateful comments and we believe what people say about us, all those moments that we hate ourselves for not being normal, and all the times that we harm ourselves. In our study we found exceptionally high rates of self-harm, and shockingly we found something like about an 85% rate of people who thought about killing themselves. From those, 45% had actually tried to kill themselves, and many people had tried to kill themselves more than 10 times. The bit that I find particularly difficult as well as a researcher is that many people, about 20 people who took part said that they were going to kill themselves within coming weeks. So there are people who took part in that study who aren't going to be alive now to hear this today. Year after year, we read lists of names, we hold silences to commemorate those people who have been taken from us. But it's only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the impact that this violence has on the trans community. To be honest, it feels overwhelming most of the time. Sometimes I don't know what to do to face it. So how can we change it? How do we build resilience? And how do we move on from all of this? Well, one of Aesop's ancient fables can give us an answer. 3 bulls, for a long time, pastured together. A lion lay in ambush in the hope of making them his prey, but was afraid to attack them while they kept together. Having at last, by guileful speeches, succeeded in separating them, he attacked them without fear as they fed alone, and feasted on them one by one at his own leisure. When we stop focusing on how we disagree as a community about things like depathologization, about who's trans enough, and about which labels to use, we can actually focus on our similarities, which are far more numerous and far more powerful than our differences. Through remembering that we're a community, we stop existing in isolation. We exist as a group that will outlive any one of us. For every one of us taken, or that can't continue this fight, many more of us will step up. It's the community that sees us through these trials. And this community isn't just us as trans people. When we embrace our cisgendered or our non-trans allies and friends, those who want to then support us, to stand alongside us, we increase the wealth and richness of our culture and our community even more. We build our capacity and strength further through a number of ways. For example, by supporting the organisations that are actively fighting this violence now, groups like Transmedia Watch, Scottish Transgender Alliance and TransBareAll. By taking part in research that comes from within our communities that benefits our communities, like the Trans Mental Health Study. And by getting involved in community events so that we can meet other people who are isolated and we can offer them our friendship. By these things, we grow stronger and we grow more resilient. As trans people, we have an immeasurable amount to offer our societies. We're valuable people and we should not be underestimated. So if you're one of those people who's feeling alone, victimised and scared, just look around you now. Look at the people next to you. Stand tall and keep fighting, because we are fighting with you. And for all of us lucky enough to be in a good space that's not governed by fear, we have a responsibility to support and remember our other community members, to reach out and to protect them. No one else is going to do this for us. Our strength is in unity as trans people and with our cisgendered allies. That's how we fight this, and that is how we're going to win. Thank you very much.